What if I told you that in 2 years' time, you could be living your dream life, living wherever you want, anywhere in the world, no bosses, no commuting, making more money than you ever have? But there's one catch. You know that for 1 year, you're going to feel completely lost, stressed, and you're going to have to sacrifice the things that you love the most. Would you take that deal? Well, in today's video, you're going to see a conversation between two people who did. One of them is me, who 3 years ago, I was here working full-time here in London, commuting 2 hours a day with the shithead bosses, doing meaningless work. And now I have my own online consulting business where I've helped a bunch of creators quit their 9-to-5, follow their dreams and scale to over 40K per month in their micro education business. And the other is, in fact, the first person I ever helped do it too. Chris was one of the first members of my first private community 2 years ago now. And he's gone from being a full-time plumber to spending the past 2 years traveling all over the world, literally living that digital nomad dream. And now he's on track to make $3 million with his business this year. This is the first episode of the rebrand of my podcast from the Summit Club to Scale. And if you learn one thing from this interview, I hope it's that if dumbasses like me and Chris can do it, you can do it too. So hit the sub button, like button if you find it useful. And yeah, join us for the first ever episode of Scale. Chris, otherwise known as, what's your alter ego?
Steph, I guess, yeah, people used to call me Steph or Stiffy, depending on where you know me from.
Stiffy. Oh, mate. Okay, so we go what feels like way back. We met it must be like 2.5 years ago now, I think. If I think about when we met, it must have been around like February 2021, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we met. You joined my first ever private community. And this was like back during the like big kind of like crypto bubble, and I was just getting into content creation. My kind of first business had really just fallen through, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do next? And I just followed my curiosity, and the curiosity ended up with you joining my group, which was at the time called the Summit Club, which turned out to end up being the name of my podcast. And this episode is fun because this is the official rebrand and launch of the next season of my podcast, rebranding it to Scale. And I'm very excited to have you as the first guest because it turns out you were basically like my first ever client. And we'll tell the story, but you have been on one hell of a journey over the past couple of years, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Because my private community is called Freedom Creators, and it's all about the this idea of designing your life, just like Tim Ferriss kind of talked about in the 4-Hour Work Week, designing your life to be what you want it to be. And you have been doing that for the last couple of years. So, Chris, man, can you give us a bit of a background? I'd love to know like where you're from originally, and give us a little bit of a kind of just a background into what happened a couple of years ago for you and the kind of the journey that you embarked on.
Yeah, 100%. So, like Tom said, Chris or Steph, as he met me back in the day, and yeah, I'm from Australia. From the accent, you can probably hear that. I'm an ex-plumber. I was plumbing for almost 10 years, and in between that, I was doing seasonal work and sort of traveling around. I had that sort of travel bug and that sort of itch to be better than just a 9-to-5, like working in the same location, and stumbled upon the NFT crypto boom where I found you on the YouTube, absolutely killing it. I just loved it's the connection between the English and the Australian humor. You had the humor, your YouTube content was quality. Well, I found it quality. I could really connect with it. It was really easy to digest. And you, along a few other like YouTubers, I really followed constantly. And that's how it kind of got me into the Summit Club, because I wanted to learn more about NFTs. I was obviously gambling a little bit at the time. I had a bit of money and I was just kind of playing around, and I wanted more help and I wanted to learn and like absorb like a sponge as much information as possible. So I thought, how do I do that? I'm going to have to get into a group, and yours was a paid community. And I was like, I'm happy to invest in that paid community. And funny enough, actually, I think about it, I remember being very disappointed that I didn't get in on the first. Like you had a system. I don't know if you can break it down, but I think you had an application system, and the application system said that I wasn't in yet. And I was actually like bummed about it. I was like, oh, I'm bummed. And then I remember being like, oh, there was a question about not having a LinkedIn, like having a LinkedIn pro. I was like, maybe it's because I didn't have a link. So I went and created a link, like instantly. I was there, like whipped up a link. And I'm like, maybe this will get me across the line. And I was bummed. And it was only like 24, maybe 48 hours. And I think because you had, my understanding is you had some people that were more experienced in that side of things first. And I was obviously had no experience. I was a plumber. I was just enthusiastic plumber. And I'm assuming you had some of the core people start earlier and got them so they could invite and like sort of show everyone around as they join the community. So it was maybe 48 hours. And then I got the email saying, hey, you're in. And I was obviously pumped again because I was like, yes, I get to come in and learn. But yeah, I would never forget that because I was bummed. I remember waking up to work. I remember going to my plumbing job being like, damn, I didn't make the cut. So that's how it all started. And obviously that was a very like close-knit community. And we were like, you got to chat to you, got to meet a lot of interesting people and people that I'm still friends with today.
Yeah.
And people that I speak to like occasionally. And yeah, it was an awesome little community of people, especially the core people. I guess I became one of the core persons or core members as we went along. And that's how it all started. So from there, I guess we became friends. And as the journey went on, and I know that we've spoke about this in the past, and I actually called you for advice because I was umming and ahhing about how I could get out of plumbing. So at that time, I was a little bit in the Amazon game as well. So I was doing stuff on the side. I had side hustles. I was running some Amazon businesses as well. They weren't generating a huge amount of money, but they were still like on the side. And obviously NFTs, I was making a bit of money there. So I kind of spoke to you and I was like, if I can get some sort of foot in the door in the NFT crypto scene to subsidize my like wages, and I'd be keen to go all in to sort of do that while still to plumbing, just so the money was coming in, because I was obviously spending a little bit buying those little JPEGs and the money was coming in and I needed a little bit more to sort of subsidize. So yeah, we had that phone call after work one day and I was like, look, I'm keen to get my foot in the door. And you hooked me up with it was meant to be a part-time job. It was obviously you were working with them doing some advisory work as well. And basically, I can't even remember the name of it, but I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the name of it?
I can't remember the name, man. Can't remember the name.
Yeah, but they were like another guy was a member. He was a part of it. And that was my first sort of taste. And they wanted me to get on Twitter and do live shows and try to basically pump up their NFT project, which was one of many steps of me stepping out of my comfort zone and making content and then obviously interviewing people like yourself and other people. And that was that period of time, which was a huge, I guess, transformative period in my life because you gave me sort of encouragement to do a bit more and gave me that little step up into the door. And then 3-4 months later, maybe 3 months later, maybe even less, 2 months later, I called you again and I was like, I'm on the way to work and I'm handing in my resignation as a plumber. I'm going full-time NFT, crypto, and Amazon, and I'm going to make it work. And yeah, I will never forget those 2 phone calls either. They were big moments, and I'm sure you remember them as well.
I do, man. Because I remember I was on my way to get coffee in the morning, and you called me and we spoke, and you were like, "Yeah, on the way back from work," and you're like, "I'm doing it, man. I'm done." And yeah, I remember it was a very transformative time for me as well, because that was again also my entry into content creation as well. And I think there's always this like especially in the kind of like the education space where people think that they need to be 10 100 steps ahead of people, when really you can just be a couple of steps ahead of someone to just help just pull them along, and that is expertise. And that was what I was doing and how we were working at the time. It was me. I was like, hey, I'm doing this stuff, I'm making content, I'm working with these different tech businesses, and just using that as a way for us to kind of like almost as a playground to learn how to make content. That's how I felt about it. I knew it was a very it was like a transitionary period for me where I was just had a great opportunity to meet people, but just stay doing my own thing and not go back to having a job. And so yeah, I remember you calling me, and I was just like, hell yeah. But then, dude, like you went on one hell of a journey since then. Can you
Yeah.
talk us a little bit about, maybe it'd be useful to explain what do you do now that you've made the
Yeah.
kind of like full transition, um, and then we can kind of go back and just look at what you've done over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I guess we can go back to that phone call when I put my resignation in, and I left with I was doing Amazon, like I was selling on Amazon Australia and the US, and we were also creating an educational course for Australians in on Amazon. So without leaving my plumbing, because I was doing, even though I dropped down Mondays and I was only doing 4 days a week, I was still doing 40 hours a week. So I still had a lot of hours on the tools, and I was pretty tired. And I was in that time, I was still getting up at 3 in the morning, trying to buy NFTs, trying to flip stuff on the side while also creating this educational course for Amazon and selling products. It was just like too much going on. So yeah, after that phone call, resignation, took my long service leave, and it gave me the ability to then focus solely on just Amazon and doing a little bit of trading and producing some content in the NFT scene, which I was really enjoying, because although I wasn't making a lot of money, I was just acquiring new skill sets. I was just learning to speak to people. I was learning to be, there's a good quote that I've been saying a lot recently. I was learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I was just doing things that I was not normally doing as a plumber, and it was growing me as a person. So basically that all happened. And the day that I actually quit, the first day that I had off, was the day that the crypto market started to go down. It was like day one of where it all started to catch on fire and crash. And I was like, wow, what have I got myself into here? But continue on from there, keep going. And there was another phone call we had. I don't know if you remember this one, but we were talking about sort of like what direction I should go. And you noticed that I was kind of 50-50 on both. I was 50-50. Like I was doing
Yep.
a lot of work on Amazon, creating Academy. I was making money there and selling products. And then I was still trying to like find that sort of clicking career or clicking income from the NFT crypto scene, which wasn't quite there yet, but I still had that attachment. And you were saying that basically I can't split my time. I have to go all in on one of them. And that point was when I decided that it was all in on Amazon, cut my losses in crypto, take what I had, take the money I had, and invest that all into the academy that I was creating, which is the Conquer AMZ Academy, which is teaching Australians right now. And then also continue to grow my knowledge in Amazon and be the best Amazon seller I could be, which leads me, I guess, to where I am now. Currently in Bali, we've been traveling the last couple of years, and yeah, we've built a brand since March. We had multiple different brands before that. Me, my wife, and my brother-in-law decided to come all together on this current brand called Prodigy X, and yeah, we've just been smashing it, and now we're looking to exit early next year.
Amazing, man. I mean, yeah. So like, I've obviously followed you. You followed your journey for a couple of years, and you know, I know exactly all the stuff that you've been up to. So I think it would be cool to get in some of the details, because the truth is that what you've done is you've gone from being a full-time plumber working long hours, man. I remember it was not easy work at all, and you just were like, okay, I'm gonna go all in. But you did that phase of like the side hustle phase, which is like, people think it's like, people have this misconception that a side hustle is like a great way to kind of like supplement income. I think that's the dumbest thing ever. I think a side hustle is purely the phase, the on-ramp for you to become a full-time entrepreneur, because
Mm.
otherwise you do just have two jobs. And it's like, who wants two jobs? Um, so yeah, you kind of went through that phase, and I remember it must have been probably coming to like summer, or I guess winter for you, like 2021, where you
Mm.
you 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 and the missus were like, okay, I think we want to go do some traveling, right?
Mm. Yeah, because we
So
we
what?
we
Yeah,
met.
well,
Yeah, me and my wife met traveling. We met in the French ski fields, and she was a physio. I was currently at that time I was working in the bar. Like I was just enjoying that seasonal work. This is in the French Alps, and after COVID happened, we obviously couldn't do that traveling. We did Greece together as well. We did a lot of traveling. We love it. We still travel now, and yeah, we decided we wanted to go back to France. This was probably 6 months, 7 months after I quit my job. we had the academy going by then. We'd launched it. We had students in there, and we were teaching people how to sell on Amazon. We had our product selling as well. We had a beach brand, and we're like, let's go back over the French Alps. Let's go enjoy the snow. And that was our first taste of working for ourselves, being like the only reason that money was coming in. Like we had to sell courses, we had to sell products, and without that, we weren't going to be able to put food on the table. And the French Alps, obviously, a bit expensive. And looking back at that time, we probably went too early. We didn't have the systems in place. We didn't have the revenue income from our products wasn't as high as we probably needed. And it was a struggle. It was great. Like it showed us what we needed to achieve to get to where we are now. Like it was like, this is what you're doing. There's all these like pillars, I guess, of being an entrepreneur and being like a digital nomad. And one of the things I've always wanted is I've always wanted that freedom to work whenever I wanted. I wanted to work from wherever I want to be, the French Alps, Greece, whatever it is. I wanted to have that money coming in. And that was like one of the points that wasn't quite there yet. It was coming in, but not frequent enough. And it made things quite tough. Even though the ski fields was great, it was a tough period in that journey because it was only, say, 6-7 months in to going full-time Amazon and trying to make that work. So that was a big learning, big lesson that kind of made me realize that we've got to go back to work and we've got to build ourselves up and come back better, to make this actually profitable and also make this livable.
Yeah, for sure. And so like you, because I remember this was one of the reasons why we like kind of probably connected was because, I was the same, like 7, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I also lived in the ski fields in France, in the French Alps, and the Austrian Alps. And like, those were the absolute, like, incredible times. And so, for me, like, that's one of the things that I want to get to is, and the reason I've done everything and made all of the decisions that I've done is to give me the choice of being able to go and do that and not have to like scrub toilets or work behind a bar or do that stuff, but like go and just like, I need my camera, I need maybe my light, and I need an internet connection, which hopefully is getting better and better. Because we'll talk about that, because I know that that's like classically one of the challenges with the digital nomad lifestyle. But yeah, you guys went and did that, and I think like part of entrepreneurship, a big part is actually just having the balls and having the guts to just jump, not knowing like where you're gonna land. And I remember when I first quit my job, like would have been nearly 3 years ago now, literally coming up to 3 years. And I remember speaking to my friend who's a tech founder, and I was like, we were in the car somewhere, and I was like, dude, I just feel like the only way I can give this a shot to make it work is if I go full time. And he was like, mate, sometimes you just got to jump out the plane and you got to figure out how to make the parachute on the way down. And I remember him saying that, and I was just like, fuck, I guess that's how it goes. And so it sounds like you did that. And I think like, obviously some big lessons there. But I actually think that a lot of people that like, they are ultimately, this thing is about risk. But in my opinion, actually the risks people inflate because of fear, and they're actually not the risks. As it turns out, 3 years later, like I've always had a roof over my head. I've always been fed. Sure, I've had a load of stress at times, especially I think when we met in February last year for the first time, in France, when we met in Paris, it sounds like we were both really at like almost like the peak of the challenge. It was like, oh crap. But I know I got through it. And from the looks of it, it looks like you guys have got through it and are really like thriving now. Talk to us a little bit about that, getting through that kind of, that first year. What were some of the things that you did to like to keep you from quitting and going back?
I guess France was a real eye opener because like we were there, we lived there, and we got by fine. Like I don't want to say it was like all doom and gloom. We got by fine, but we weren't where we wanted to be financially. Like we wanted to be more. We wanted to achieve more at that stage. We have high goals. We wanted to achieve more. So we were just sick of being fine. You know what I mean? Like fine is just it's
For
there. We
sure.
wanted more than being fine. We had the lifestyle, we had the skiing, we had that. And I guess it was a lot of lessons that it taught us was that like, this is a great lifestyle, but we want more and we wanted it in a different way. So that kind of, when we got back to Australia, we're like, okay, how do we achieve this? And it just so happened that Eric, my brother-in-law, had just started a new brand, which is the current one we are building now. And it was taking off, but he needed more help to grow this brand. It was going exponentially. And so we just dropped all our brands. We dropped our current beach brand and we jumped on board with him. We invested everything we had at that time to help out on this project. And we've just grown that over the last couple of years. So that was like, it showed that when we, in that first 6 months and going away, thinking we had it already sorted, it showed that we needed to upskill still. We still needed to learn how to live that lifestyle and how to balance it. Because as soon as we'd left our jobs, like, yes, we want to go away again. But we like I said earlier, we didn't have the systems fully in place yet to make it comfortable. We needed to take that step back. And I think going fast is good, as long as you're learning those lessons along the way. And we learned what we needed to do to take the next step. And if we hadn't gone to France and taken that risk, like you said, jumped out that plane, we may not have got to where we are now, because we never would have known what we needed to improve on ourselves, as myself, my wife, as a couple, as in general, because we would have been comfortable just kind of working away, tapping away. So I fully agree. It's a great saying, jumping out and trying to find out where that parachute is. I love it. That's exactly
Yeah.
what we had.
Yeah, and I think like, there's obviously ways in which we can shortcut the path, and we'll talk about education because that's what we do. We both have education businesses, and like ultimately the reason I do this is so that I can help as many people as possible do what we're doing, which is
Yeah.
having that freedom, having that autonomy, but at the same time, like just growing as a human, like learning skills, growing as a human being. One thing you mentioned there is that I've thought about a lot, and I think about quite a lot, is occasionally it becomes, I get this feeling where it becomes really clear that I I I have, it's like another slap in the face where it's like you have so much more to learn. I don't know if you
Mm.
can relate to that, but it's like you almost like you see someone like gives you a look behind the curtains and you're like, oh shit, I thought I was so much closer. And you're like, no.
Like even in the last year. So I guess I can fully relate to that. Like last year as an Amazon seller. So not talking about our academy, we kind of put the academy on the back burner a little bit because we wanted to focus on growing our brand that we were building out. And because it was growing exponentially and we were learning so much, we knew that if we could absorb all those new skills, we could then put that back into our students. So we took a bit of time away from marketing the academy and actually just focused on being the best Amazon sellers we could be. So last year, like sales wise, we did over $1 million in revenue. So we were 7-figure sellers, and we're going to triple that this year. So the difference
Wow.
between 1 million in revenue and going to 2 to 3, there has been so much growth from myself and my wife and my brother-in-law because we've had to do like the next level. It's like
Yeah.
there's tiers. I know you've spoke about this before. There is tiers of sellers or tiers of entrepreneurs, and you get to one level and like, yeah, I'm there. But then you're like, okay, how do I get to the next tier? And you have
Yeah.
to learn. You have to do. I started doing advanced PPC courses, which is Amazon advertising. I started learning. I like to learn new stuff. The stuff that no one else wants to do, I'll just do it. So I started learning about Google Ads, inventory management. We've created systems that we just didn't have a year ago, and all this sort of stuff now just goes into our academy, an updated academy, which we're dropping soon. But without that sort of brand growing and wanting to go all in on that and knowing that to grow it to the level it has, we had to learn more and we had to educate ourselves. We'd never be able to get to where we are. We'd never be able to teach as well as we teach now because you learn so much from doing and then you can then pass that on.
For sure, man. And so it sounds like it's because yeah, I relate to it, and it feels like it's, for me feels right now that I'm entering like a period where I'm going deeper into things. So the examples for me is like Instagram content, getting like really challenging myself to be like, okay, I want to get to here because I want to be able to teach people how to get to there.
Mm.
And it's not like a vanity thing. It's not like I want to have this many followers. I don't want to be like an influencer or whatever. I just want to know how to do it. And I've managed to kind of like over the last, years, just I've grown audiences through not much effort. I've never felt like I've put proper effort into it. And
Mm.
so there are a few different areas now which I'm like, okay, I see the verticals where I've got to invest, and I like time and money. So I'm looking at, okay, like Instagram, who can I go to for Instagram content, and learn from them? And so I've got a few people who I'm either going to do their courses or get them as mentors or coaches for both Instagram, YouTube, and then the other vertical is advertising. So same as you. Like it's like, once you I genuinely think like the I think the biggest cheat code to entrepreneurship is having and I learned this from Sam Ovens, and he said that I watched a video once from like 7 years ago, and he was like, yeah, so everyone else splits their focus. I just decided to focus on one funnel and make it as good as possible for 4 years. And that
Mm.
funnel was a Facebook ads to webinar funnel. And he was like, no one has the guts to try and refine something for 4 years. And I was like, that was a big thing for me. I was like, okay, so that's actually it is all about sticking to one thing and depth. And so I'm
Mm.
like, if you learn advertising, paid advertising, I just think you're just never, ever, ever gonna struggle for the rest of your life. I
Yeah.
don't know. Do you feel that? Because it sounds like that's one vertical that you've kind of invested
Oh,
in.
like that's one thing that I admire about you, Tom, is I love how you can hyper focus on something. Like even as I was speaking and talking about how you told me to choose one or the other, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still doing an educational service and a brand on Amazon, even though they link together and they sync very
Sure.
nicely. I'm more hyper focused on the brand of the last year. However, that's like we said, we're going to try to we're on the way to exit that. And we've been able to set up systems now that we can take a step back and start doing more for the educational side, because we have been reshooting videos and getting that ready to go, creating funnels, learning how to advertise. We haven't spent a single cent on advertising yet. So learning how to advertising. But I love how you can hyper focus on these things. And it's something that I admire in. How do you, I guess I'm throwing it back to you. How do you choose what is necessity? Like how do you choose what to focus on? Do you break down what you're looking at and what you need and be like, okay, I just got to focus on that for the time being? Because I always find it hard to split and sometimes just have that one thing.
Yeah, great question. So this actually comes back to a bit of a realization that I had maybe last year, which is, so when I started CreatorLaunch a year ago, I got my first mentor, as in not my first, but like for this specific thing that I'm trying to do. And it opened my eyes to like where I could go. Gave me a little like again, like a little look behind the curtains. I was like, oh shit, like I can go there. And I was like, that looks like a lot of fun. And it was like, okay, and then over the last 9 months, it's become even clearer. It's been like I've seen then other people in the space who have been doing it for like 10 years. And it looks like the lifestyle that they have, again, just looks really fun. They seem really fulfilled. They seemingly like they just, they it just it seems awesome.
Mm.
They have an amazing lifestyle. They do hard stuff, but it's like fun. And I'm like, that's where I want to head.
Mm.
And so for I think it's like the key is kind of first just getting an idea of like where directionally you can head, and then deciding, okay, that's where I'm going to head. And I'll be honest, dude, like hearing that thing from Sam Ovens gave me a bit of a like a little bit of a perspective shift of like, okay, yeah, you do have to stick with something for a significantly longer than you expect. I think I always knew that. I think I was like, I want to find the thing that I can, because people always tell like Hormozy bangs on about this like you need to stick to something for decades.
Mm.
That's how you get success. And I'm like, in the online business space, especially where we started, it was so fast paced and so fluid and so like transactional. You're like, one week is a different thing to the next week. And so I think we got ingrained a little bit in that kind of like mentality of like things are just chopping and changing really fast.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I've got a very, very solid idea of what I think I can build, which it
Mm.
sounds like it's the same for you. It sounds like you've got a really good idea now of what it is like your product can be. And so for me now, I've got a very clear idea of where I can take my product. And the fun thing is I know that it's going to be a multi-year process to build that, like to where I want to get to, which is cool. That's like I'm like fuck yeah. It means that like I'm constantly going to be learning and refining and getting things better. And this past year, I've gone through about 3 or 4 iterations of my product, and I'm currently in a mini sprint right now to get a big new version out, and it's super fun. But what I again I've learned, and I guess this is the benefit of being able to read these books. At the
Mm.
moment, I'm reading How to Get to 10 Million by William Brown. Um,
Mhm.
and the good news, I'm reading this, I'm like, oh shit, I'm doing what this guy did to get 10 to sell a $10 million, and I'm like, this is the roadmap that I'm following. And so I'm like, fuck yeah, like I just need to keep on going. Um, but it's the big thing is I spoke to a client yesterday who and we were talking about having to making sure you select the right vehicle
Mm.
because of this what I think is a bit of a dirty secret of entrepreneurship, which I talk about occasionally, which is that everything works.
Mm.
So when you know everything works and you just have to stick with something for long enough, that to me actually frees me. And is like, okay, I just need to find one thing and I'm just gonna go fucking all in. Um, And so it's been from hearing from mentors saying, okay, if you do this acquisition system, we've built our business to 100K per month with this acquisition system, and then it caps out, and then you're going to have to add this acquisition system to get to the next level. And so that again is really freeing because you're like, okay, I just need to fucking just go. I just need to go on that
Yeah.
vertical, forget about all that other stuff. Whether it's because again, when I say everything works, people have built amazing coaching businesses on cold emails, on webinar funnels, on like VSL funnels, on cold DMs, whatever, warm DMs like I do. It all works. The key is making sure that you focus. So what I did is I picked a system last year. My plan is to ride it out until I get to a certain milestone. And so
Mm.
that to me is like I'm not allowed to split my focus until
It's
I've
just,
hit that level.
yeah, yeah,
And but that's the benefit of a mentor telling you that. Because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
otherwise, dude, otherwise I'd be like, oh, I've been doing this for a year now, and maybe I should try something else. Because that's what
Yeah.
happens. That's what happens. If you don't have someone telling you, no, no, you fucking see it out till you get to this milestone.
It's so
But
easy as well. Like when you're starting out to the shiny object syndrome. Like we
mm,
have students going through our academy, and we've created our academy so that like it streamlines, and like you have done as well, it streamlines new people, new students to get to their goals. And if you just follow the steps, you're gonna get there. Like it's gonna happen. Like you said, it will work. It's
yeah,
been proven to work. But then you have students reaching out and be like, "What if I try this? What if I try this?" That's not in there. Where are
yeah,
you seeing that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah.
no, 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 just stick to the strategy. And we have like live trainings, and it's just it makes you laugh because then you have the phone call and they're like, oh, we went back and did exactly what you said, and now it's working. And you're like, yeah, see, the process works. So I'm sure you get the same thing, and you have people in your group, in your academy, and your creator launch, and they start to go a little bit rogue, and you just need to focus them back in the right direction again.
100%. And the thing I've learned, and this is why I'm really excited about this next kind of iteration, is I've taken those lessons, and some of the lessons that I've learned is um, the common feelings of people. I like so for me, I'm thinking, okay, how do I get people the best results in the industry? Like what are the things that need to occur for them to guarantee their success? So firstly, they just need to be qualified. So I need to make sure that they're actually like they fit within my kind of criteria that I need them to be in. Because the truth is I cannot help everyone, but I can help the people who fit within this kind of qualifying criteria. So that's the first thing.
Mm.
The second thing is then what's really common, what commonly happens when people join an education program. And I found this out from my like previous iteration, um, because I heard it as kind of like a passing comment, or they would. It was after the first week, um, clients would say, "Oh yeah, just feeling a bit overwhelmed right now,"
Mm.
and that to me was like, okay, and that's because I had made the mistake of just being like, okay, I'm just going to throw everything I know into an online kind of like curriculum,
Yep.
and then just let them have it. And for a lot of people, that just not, well, for most people, that's a nightmare. So, and I know this as well because I could then think, okay, so there's overwhelm. That's going to help. That's going to slow people down. What's the next thing? The next thing is that people don't do the shit that they need to do. So the milestones and the steps that they need to take, like you said, they just don't do them. And then you've got to ask, well, why don't they do them? And then you're like, okay, well, one of the reasons is because, and I know this because this is what I've done when I've joined education programs, or even at university or whatever. You fucking skip around.
Mm.
You go, oh, this is interesting. The curiosity. You're like, oh, that, like,
You think you know
and
what's
you,
next. You're like,
yeah,
oh, I think I've
exactly,
got this. Or you
yeah,
also take the easy route. You're like, oh, that's a bit easy. I'm going to do more of that.
exactly. And so what
Yeah.
happens is people skip around, and by skipping around, they miss
Mm.
things. So okay, I'm thinking now. I'm like I was like deeply reflecting. I've had the great news is I'm like I've managed to get awesome results with people with what feels now in reflection like a really not an optimized process to get help people with education. So I'm like, okay, well, if I optimize this shit and I get these things sorted, if I completely eradicate overwhelm, if I make sure it's really clear what are the checkpoints that people need to get to, and they do the work, and then I make sure they do it in a sequence and they don't miss anything, I'm like, fuck, like hell yeah. So I'm now making this next iteration for me is I'm making it I'm calling it kind of like gamified entrepreneurship, where I literally have designed it like a video game,
Mm.
where people have levels. And it's like you are not allowed to get to the next level until you've defeated the fucking boss.
I love
It's
it.
like,
I love it.
and yeah, and so I'm like, how can I bring fun, and so to again reduce the overwhelm? So it's like, how can I bring fun into it? How can I bring uh the I've got some very interesting things I came up with yesterday about how I can make sure that the work that is required gets done, but also not. I don't want it to feel like you're back at school where it's like tests or exams. Um, so I'll share this with you because it's like I'm not going to like say it now because it is actually I'm actually quite excited, but I think you're going to like it because there's some interesting tech elements to this. Um, but I'm like, okay, so if I can get those three things in, um, that's going to be game changing. Like
Mm.
because I'm like stopping people from skipping around, making sure that they get the work done, and just not feeling like the overwhelm. I'm like, that's it. Those are the three
Yeah.
things that stop people.
Gamifying it is like, I like the sound of that because I guess as for your business as well, it's people start making money or making more money, and that's the game that they're starting
Dude,
to be like,
wait,
oh, this is working, cha-ching, this is working. But they need to get that excitement during it. And like
for
I know,
sure.
for example, we've had students now that, well, one student recently just went full time. He's gone full time Amazon now, which is, for me, it's almost the same as you talking to me. It's the full circle now. You got me to leave my job, and I've got someone to leave their job.
Yeah.
And it's the money that was coming in that gave him that ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching along the way. And he had hurdles. He jumped over those hurdles, and he had a few roadblocks as well. And he picked himself back up again. But I love the idea and what you're talking about of gamifying your educational platform so that people get those rewards along the way,
Yep.
not just at the end line, because it takes you a while to get there sometimes. And I don't know, for me, for our academy, it's 3 to 4 months before you can launch your first product, which means you're not getting a sale for 3 to 4 months, and you're probably not going to make profit for a few weeks after that because you've invested in those products.
Yep.
And you've obviously, they've got to do the work on themselves, start putting out content, probably pay for advertising, pay for content, investing in themselves and into content before they'll probably get that return as well. And that's when they'll start getting that ka-ching moment. So I
For sure,
like the
man.
idea that you're gamifying your way of teaching, so they get more of those like boosts on the way, because that's going to stop the drop off as well, isn't it?
For sure, dude. So I'll actually, after this call, I'll kind of give you a quick kind of demo, because or like show you what I'm thinking and doing, or I'm going to be doing, because I actually think it's actually really pretty simple to will be pretty simple to roll out, but I think it's going to be like pretty game changing. I predict that it's going to become like the most common way for people to do stuff, because it just makes total sense. But yeah, like I'm the same. So for me, when people work with me, I have that initial period of like it's a 4 month period where I help them build their initial growth infrastructure. And sure, like the aim when people work for me is to pay off their entire investment during that first either 30 days to 90 days. So they're like kind of they're in that first 30 to 90 days. Then this is where I'm like really open with people. I want to work with people for multiple years. I want to be their business coach to help them get to all of the next milestones. So there's two elements of gamification that I'm introducing. There is the education element of gamification, which is the learn this stuff, learn the skills, implement the skills, get a reward at each of these different stages. And then there's the macro gamification, which is, oh shit, like you're at 10K a month. Let's get you to 20K a month. You're at 20K a month. Let's get you to 40K a month. And it's like the gamification is to be like, okay, well, I know that to get people from 10K to 100K a month, people can do that in 2 to 3 years, because a lot of people do. So I'm like, if I can give them a like almost like a carrot and just dangling, to be like, just hey, just keep pushing, stay in here and gamify it and reward them for each of the milestones. I'm like, yeah, this is sick. So yeah, I'll tell you, I'll show you exactly what I'm planning. But really exciting, because I haven't seen anything like it, and I think I'm I'm super intent. The intention is I want best results in the industry. And that's one dumbass claim, because that's can never be verified. But what that means is that I'm like, I'm gonna leave no stone unturned to make sure that my product is the most potent that it could be. Which I think is like ultimately at the end of the day, that's all we can do, is just try and make our product the best possible. Dude, I've got a couple of questions for you. And it's you said about you've made the leap from $1 million a year to now you're looking, it's forecast to triple. What have been the biggest lessons? You mentioned kind of advertising or some skills and stuff. What have been the big like things you're like, fuck, okay, this is where we're gonna have to put some energy?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess when we were looking as a business when it started off, and we needed to kind of spread the workload and needed to sort of see who was good in what areas. So for example, I'm a numbers person. I've always kind of like liked numbers, like even plumbing, not just measurements and all that. I don't know.
Yes.
Actually like good at numbers without even being like a mathematician. So there was areas like inventory management, like PPC, which is Amazon's form of advertising, which just needed more. It needed more attention. So like I was like, I'm gonna learn everything I can and take control of that. Make sure our inventory, like cash flow, stops if you can't keep your inventory going. So they were like, these are important things. Where Eric, who's my business partner and brother-in-law, he's very good at the front end, like listing creation. So for him to do more listing creation and us release more products, I needed to give him more time. So I took over this area, so he could do more work on that area. And then Veronica, my wife, who's also kept it in the family, into the business, she had to learn how to do influencer marketing. So reaching out to influencers, getting our products out there to build the brand. So all these little cogs that as a one person is very hard to do to grow that brand to the next level, to go from 1 million to 3 million. So we had to start becoming, I guess, like I said, focused on different areas. So I don't touch any of the listing creations. Eric doesn't touch any of the advertising or really the inventory management. And Veronica, she sticks in her own lane when it comes to the influencer marketing, and she does a lot more of the academy side as well for marketing on that side. So we had to kind of make the decision, all right, guys, you have to become really good at this area. And we were in areas that we liked anyway. So it made it easier. We enjoyed being in those areas. And then we've just worked our way forward. That's probably one of the biggest lessons, is that you need to find the right people to help do things I guess you don't want to do, or help support the business in a way. So if you're not good at something, you can learn it. You can definitely learn it, and it might take some time. But if you have to sacrifice something that you're good at that's helping the business grow to learn a new skill, then that over there is sacrifice, which could bring the business down here, but it might bring it down here. I believe you should get someone in, or you need that help so you can continue being the best at that part, and then maybe bring in someone else to help you grow together up there. And that's what we found growing as a team, that we've been able to grow the business as a team because we've all just inherently learned new skills to take it to the next level.
Awesome, man. Do you think now that you've kind of like you're almost like you've done this once, do you feel like if you had to start again, it's like you kind of know what you would need to do?
We want to start again.
Okay.
When I say like if we had to start again,
Yeah.
no, because there's been lessons along the way as well. We've made mistakes. It's been by doing that we've been able to get here. But I guess when it comes to Amazon side of thing, if we speak about that, we plan on exiting next year, and we'll probably just start another brand because we like building the brands out. We know what works now, and we know we can just rinse and repeat it again, especially in Australia, because Australia is just a growing marketplace, and we know exactly how to just dominate that area now. So for us, we're at the stage now where our business is getting to that level where we'd have to employ more people. We have one employee, but we'd have to grow that out to really expand the business. And then that's if we want to continue. We love the brand. That's the thing. We love our brand, but we also know that it's a good time to exit and then go back to doing what we know is best. And that's creating new brands and scaling the idea of exiting again. So the idea with Amazon is you can scale a brand, exit, do it again. Once you understand the skills, and you can rinse and repeat, just like any strategy or any sort of like techniques that you use. It's once you know it and you understand it, you can see the opportunities and rinse and repeat it again.
But it's funny though, because like I know when I speak to, well, sorry, even when I just like listen to entrepreneurs who are like 10, 20 years ahead, it's because I could see it in your reaction when I was like, do you want to start again? And you were like, we want to start again. Yeah. What happens is the fun part is the start. Like it's the fun part of like, how do I grow? How do I like position how do I build a product? How do I go through all that fun stuff? Learning how to position the messaging, the marketing messaging, the like, whatever. It's like, it's fun just building all this stuff. And I think that's like ultimately the biggest lesson for me is like, I love just like building. I love, for me, I do a lot of like content creation is my thing, whether that's internal content for my program or external content. I just love the process of creation. And so it's this feeling of like, it just ends up feeling like you're just playing. And I think the cool thing for you, man, like is the next time is like you're probably going to go into the next one, with first you're going to have confidence that you've been there and done it, and that's going to give you like faith and belief, and that's going to mean you're less stressed. It's probably going to be more fun, and it's probably going to do even better.
I think something earlier about levels as well. Like you got those levels to get to, and for us, the goal is to now exit this one brand while continuing our education on the side as well. But what that's going to give us is it's going to give us the capital to go again. It's going to give us the confidence, like you said, that we know we've been able to create what we wanted to. And we're at that stage where we've discussed it, and we don't necessarily feel like we want to take the next step of getting like 4 or 5 other employees on. Like we've hit a like a benchmark. We know what was needed next. And we're like, we actually want to pay. We want to feel it a bit more. We want to pay out, because obviously you're building a business. You put a lot in. We want to really feel it. Then get back to the drawing board and be like, okay, now how do we invest this into the next thing that's going to be bigger than our last thing? Like It's like we've created this one brand. We love it, and as much as we can continue growing it, we've actually been discussing let's exit it, use our resources to then grow the next big thing, and really sit down and come up with what we want to do next for the future 2, 3, 4 years.
Hell yeah. Sick, man. Hey, look, okay, so I've got one last question for you, dude. And this is a timely question because next week I'm going to be leaving London. And I haven't left London for 7 years now. I mean, apart from like the occasional like break and holiday and whatever. But I'm going to go do the digital nomad, the freedom creator lifestyle as I talk about, because I've been living free in London. But now I'm like, I want to go see some of the world and experience some of the world. what one tip that you can give me from your 2 years of traveling
Mm.
around as an entrepreneur? What piece of advice would you give me?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I guess just to clarify so people listening can see that I warrant the advice, me and my wife actually packed up all our stuff, went to the French Alps like we discussed earlier, and we've kind of been living that life ever since. It's now been coming up almost 2 years. We spent almost over 3 months in Europe last year. No, sorry, 3 months, 6 months in Europe, France, and then we went back to Europe after going back to Australia for a few months, and a month or so, 2 months in Asia, and then we went back to Australia for a little bit, got married, and we're like honeymoon, and we've decided not to come back. We've been here another 3 months in Asia, so we've been living this sort of like digital nomad life, working and growing these businesses from our laptop. The one piece of advice which I think we learned last year is that to not to not move around too much. Now that sounds strange, but it's like find a location that you want to set up for I'd say 2 weeks is the smallest amount of time. I would say even more,
Sure,
3 to 4 weeks is better, because what I found is that it's travel is so much fun, and and being in new locations is amazing, but it can be stressful, especially when you're trying to run businesses and you know you've got work to do. So you sometimes don't give yourself the ability to go see things. You're like, oh, I want to go explore, I want to experience travel, but then you're like, but I need to do my work here,
sure.
and you kind of get stuck in the middle a little bit, and then you end up being like a little bit, I guess, you feel like you're being selfish if you're doing too much travel and the business is suffering, or you feel like you're just working too much in the business and you're not enjoying your life. So I think one thing we've learned, especially this year, is we've spent the last 2.5 months in Bali, and it's been probably one of the best times we've been here. And then prior, we've spent a couple of months in Australia where we could lock in but still experience things and get that feeling of I'm still living this digital nomad life. I'm in a cool location. I'm doing activities that I love, but I'm not like overwhelmed with having to move to the next location, having to book the next Airbnb, having to get on the next flight, having to, find where the good restaurants are. Once you start to travel and do it in, like, I reckon 3 to 4 week periods where you really get to experience the place the place you're in, sorry, I think that's when you really enjoy it, because the business doesn't suffer and you get that wholesome feeling that you're doing things that not everyone can do. You're actually living that life that you've been dreaming of, because you're now working wherever you want, whenever you want, and you have that true freedom.
Awesome, man. Look, dude, like I said, I asked you at the beginning of this, beginning of the podcast, I was like, what would you love to get out of this? And you're like, you know what, man, I haven't ever like fully reflected on the journey I've been on. And I said to you, that's funny because I reflect all the time on your journey. Like I think about you and your journey, maybe more than my journey. Cause I'm like, I look at you as a true inspiration for people who, I have a screenshot on my phone of that time you called me and you were by the side of the road and it was like 7 o'clock in the evening in Australia and it was like 8 a.m. here in the UK and you were like, I'm fucking done, man. And it was like the fact that you took that leap of faith without knowing how you were going to do it. You didn't have the answers because no one ever does. And you've been on this incredible journey, and to like see you here now and to know you got through that first initial phase, which everyone has to go through, to now where it feels like you have confidence, you have kind of like clarity on where you can go and where you can take this. So sick, man. And yeah, I'm just like the day is going to come where we are shredding in the French Alps. I'm hopeful that it's going to be this spring because I know that it may you guys may end up in the Alps. Who knows?
We are itching to get back to the Alps. If it's not the Europe, we'll be in Japan. Like
Wow.
we're like, we missed
Okay.
one year, like we've got to get back. But I just realized, and I forgot to mention this earlier, my first ever YouTube video, my first ever interview I ever did, I asked you, and you actually came up and helped me out because I'd never done a single interview. And I remember Twitter, we recorded it. This is like, for me, you talk about how you remember those times. I remember the times as well where I started, and this is like a full circle. Like, you were on my first ever sort of stepping outside my comfort zone, interviewing someone
Yeah.
and talking about, it was about, like creating content because I really loved your content. And now obviously 2 years down the track, that was actually June 2020. So 2 years down the track, and I'm here again having a chat with you on a video, on a podcast scenario. And now we're talking about, I don't know, business creation and entrepreneurship and courses and academies. And it's just like, it's a surreal feeling for me as well, because of the journey has been amazing and you've been a big part of it along the way.
Thanks, man. Yeah, likewise. Like, it's so cool to share this with people, and I think like ultimately, like this conversation is the reason I've done everything, is to be a part of like helping, whether it's one person, two people, whatever, like just actually just back themselves. And yeah, I guess like I honestly, you know, we said this at the beginning. You asked how I'm doing, and I was like, honestly, man, like I could almost not verbalize it because I'm like, I feel like I've made it. Like I feel like I've made it to that point where it's like I was always kind of like, you know, I always knew I would get there, but it was like you just never knew when it was going to happen. And so I think that the one thing I would say to anyone watching this who maybe hasn't taken the leap yet, or is thinking about the leap, if you're watching this, you're listening to this, there is a compulsion within you that is telling you to do this. Take it from me and Chris and fucking go all in, and don't worry about not knowing what to do. And as again, like it's 2 years. Took me 2 years, took Chris 2 years to go from nothing to where we're at now, where we have thriving online businesses and can do whatever the hell we want. And the question you've got, and
comfortable, to truly feeling that comfort.
Yeah, and I've interviewed a lot of people who do this. It's 2 to 3 years, and it's most people give up after a few months, and so they never get to that. If you can make it through that first year, then I just want, like, I would love to say, have the faith that you're one more year away. And if you made it through that first year, you just need to keep going for another, and 100%. You'll get there. Dude, thank you so much.
I can't wait to see 2 years from now.
I know, dude. I know. Okay. Chris, thanks for joining, man. And we're going to get you back on the pod at some point. Okay.
Thanks so much, Tom. I've had absolute pleasure.
Awesome, man. That was pretty sick, right? Look, just finishing up editing, and London behind me. So going to be leaving London in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm off on my own adventures. Subscribe, hit the like button, and that was sick. And I'll see you in the next one.